Okay. Welcome to our Know Your Rights training. This meeting will be facilitated in English. We have one coming up in Spanish. This is our Know Your Rights training series, Interaction with Immigration Authorities. Every month, on the last Tuesday of the month, we will have a training focused on a specific topic regarding Know Your Rights. We're planning workshop sessions coming up around safety planning. We have workshop sessions coming up around how to best protect our children in schools and more. So join us for this monthly series. Every last Tuesday of the month, this presentation will be in English. Every last Wednesday of the month, this presentation will be in Spanish. So with that, there are a couple of reminders. We are not lawyers. This is not legal advice. This is information that we are sharing that has been vetted by attorneys, lawyers, community-based organizations. These are some of the best practices that we have learned to support in navigating interactions with immigration authorities. Also want to remind us about confidentiality. You may have questions. Please go ahead and put them in the chat. I have a couple of colleagues, Carmen, Norma, and more that will be helping us with the co-facilitation. Be mindful of any questions that you pose that do not share any identifying details of you or a loved one. So let's be mindful of the confidentiality we keep in this space because this meeting is being recorded and we will be sharing it on our website and social media so we can ensure that folks get access to this information. So be mindful of what you share in this meeting. Also want to share the goal for today's meeting is education and movement building, empowering ourselves with tools, with information, so we can better not only support ourselves, but our community. So if that is a commitment that you are committed here today to taking this information into practice, please put a si se puede or a yes we can, yes we will in the chat. We can go ahead and get started because communities that learn together and grow together are the safest ones that I've been a part of. So that's our commitment here today. Gracias, Saraí, for that si se puede. Absolutely. Because what we heard earlier today, el pueblo salva el pueblo. The community saves the community. Okay. Adelante, colegas, with that. Colegas, this is a great summary. For many of you all that love summaries like I do, this is an overview of what we're going to deepen today. We're going to go over what do we do if we have any interactions with immigration authorities. This is a one-pager that is available on our website. It is in English and in Spanish. It's a great tool that you can just post on your fridge next to your door that does a quick reminder of everything we're going to cover today, what to do if you have any interactions with immigration authorities. It's already on our website. I'm putting it into the chat. We routinely update this information, but this is a great summary of what we're going to be talking about for the next hour. And we will also have an hour open for question and answer. Okay. Getting started, this is a reminder for all of us to know every person in the U.S., regardless of their immigration status, has constitutional rights. Meaning no matter what our immigration status is, we have constitutional rights that we can practice, that we will share more about today with any interaction with law enforcement, immigration enforcement, or more. Okay, colegas, I would love for you to look at the screen and tell me which of these photos are people that enforce immigration. Who of them are immigration authorities? You can use the chat, you can come off mute. Tell me, who of the folks? Okay, Brandy says could be all. Malena says maybe the folks that have ICE. Melanie says all. Okay, we see CBP, Customs Border Protection, could be all. I see Jason saying all. Dulce ICE, okay. For those folks that are thinking all or that have said all, can someone come off mute and tell me why you think all of the folks on these pictures could be immigration authorities?
You hear me?
I can hear you, Jason. Adelante.
Yes. Well, I would say that because they're all different aspects of working in immigration control, the Border Patrol, Customs and Border Patrol, the field operations, and the police, the uh, ICE, they all, I believe, are working for the same purpose.
Yeah, they could be, right? They could be collaborating. Okay. And Jason or someone else can also answer this. What about the two colegas here that look like my favorite Amazon delivery person? Do we think that they may be? And I see Angelica has her hand up. Adelante, Angelica.
They too can be border patrol because they dress as regular people, especially in situations where they're trying to surprise the victim or person.
Yes. Yep, they could be some type of immigration authority. They could be, as you mentioned, Border Patrol, Customs Border Protection, Immigration Customs Enforcement, ICE, La Migra. That is one thing, colegas, that we want to be very vigilant and aware of, is that they don't always come in with their chalecos, their vests that say ICE, CBP, immigration. That is not always the case. So it could look like someone that's coming to check out your water bill or deliver a package. So that's one of the things that we want to be really vigilant of, not just for ourselves, but for our little ones, for our family. And we're going to get into a little bit more of those examples as we move forward. So, colegas, as I mentioned earlier today, these are the key steps for you to follow if you have an interaction with immigration authorities. We're going to go into each one of these details. During this session, many of you all will have very specific examples. What if this happens or this happens? We'll try to answer some of those questions. We do have attorneys that will be joining us in future sessions to be able to answer some of those questions. But these are the key 7 steps that no matter in what scenario, you can adapt them to help them keep you safer in those interactions. So we'll go over each one of these steps one by one, but it's don't open the door, verify a warrant, don't answer questions, do not sign anything, ask if you're free to go, document, and communicate. And we'll get into each one of these as we go. These are also in that one pager that I linked into the chat. Okay, we're going to go into the first point here. Do not open the door. This is a key. This is what will keep you safe. This is what will keep the space between you and any immigration authority. If you're at home, if you're in a place where there's a door where you can close that, do not open the door. This is something also that is very important for you to share with your children. Little Maddie, as you see here on the left part of the screen, used to love opening the door for Doña Sophie that would go and share pupusas. Very important. How many of us hear a knock on the door and before we know it, our little ones have opened that door and whoever's out there can come inside. And that is key, colegas. If you are not expecting someone, if you do not know that person, whether it looks like they're just delivering something, you need to confirm who they are. Or better yet, don't open the door. They can call you, they can contact you if it is someone that you're expecting. And that's something for us to practice with our families, making sure that that door stays closed. Confirm if it's someone that you know, waiting before you open the door. Immigration authorities do not always wear uniforms, as we saw, so they could very easily be confused for someone else. Because once they are inside, they will be able to expand their search to other people in the residence. Even if you just crack that door open a tiny bit, they can just push that door open, and that is seen as you gave them an invitation to be able to come inside. They can question other people. And so even if you have your neighbor visiting and you're completely safe, they could question your neighbor too. And it's better to just keep that door closed. And we're going to let you know what can you do once you've kept that door closed. Gracias, Betsy, for sharing the resources in the chat. Okay, so what you do, they come to knock on your door, right? You're not going to open that door. You need to know who these people are and what they're there for. You are going to ask them to verify, you're going to ask them for their warrant. So you can verify what court order or warrant they have in their possession. Colegas, it is very rare for them to have a valid warrant. Many times they'll use a generic warrant or document to try to gain access to people's residence. That is why you are going to ask for that warrant. They must have a valid warrant that is dated and signed by a judge with the address and name of the person that they are looking for. You get to verify those details. It's rare for them to have it, and you do not need to open the door to see that warrant. They can show it near a window. As they put that up to the window, you can go ahead and snap a picture of it. They can slide it underneath the door. Sometimes we have little gaps underneath the doorways. Have them slide it underneath that door so that you can verify what type of warrant they have or what type of court order they have. Other than that, they cannot enter legally unless you give them permission to enter. And that permission could look like you simply opening that door. So do not open that door. That is your protection. Many times, if they have a valid court-ordered warrant that is ready and good to go, sometimes they don't even knock. So that is a signal to you to remember you verify that warrant. You snap that picture because then you can send it to your local connections, your local community-based organizations, your local response networks, post it on social media so that they could see, look, there's ICE activity. This is the warrant that they're using. And then I want to show you all, and there's a great example by the National Immigration Law Center that shows the different components that you would want to verify. And I see a question that's, can we call the local police to verify warrants? You can. Sometimes there's long wait times. Sometimes they might not be able to get to you right away. They might route you to another department. So the best thing for you to do is keep that door closed. Try to verify as much as you can. Is it signed by a judge? Is it dated? Who are they looking for? Where do they have access to enter? And just taking that picture. Because that way, some of our rapid response or local networks might be able to respond to you sooner than that. But yeah, you can always call your local, especially if you have good relationships with your local police officers or more, you can always try to verify. That may be lengthier. So looking at these key components is always a good strategy as well. Okay. Step number 3, don't answer anything, don't share anything. So they may ask you, they may try to, especially if you're in a group setting or individual, they might try to be very amicable. Don't share anything, don't answer anything. If a state officer or immigration agent tries to talk to you, you have the right to remain silent. Can I hear that one more time in the chat, please? You have the right to remain silent because everything you share could be used against you. So this is the one time where you should be practicing that right, really exerting that. Beautiful, love that said. You have the right to remain silent. That is your right, and that is your responsibility. Because anything you share could be used against you. It could be manipulated. It could cause confusion. You might try to overshare to fix the confusion, and that's just like we're trained to keep ourselves safe. They're trained on how to get information out of you. So do not share anything. Do not share any information without an attorney present. We have some great red cards that I will go ahead and drop into the chat. These are resources that have been used for many, many years, developed by various advocacy organizations that you all can print. You can also order them for your organizations, for your community. These little red cards outline that you do not wish to speak to immigration authorities, that you have the right to speak to a lawyer, that you're going to practice that right. That outlines all of these points here that we've just covered. Step number 3. Oh, and I should have told y'all, we have a little pop quiz at the end of this training. So remember these, okay? All right. Building on this, don't answer anything, don't share anything. A key component as well, colegas, is do not present them with any documentation that connects you to another country. So let's say you're driving and get pulled over, you show them their driver's license. Do not show them anything else. You don't need to show if you are a passenger, you don't need to show documentation. Do not show documentation, especially if it's from another country. That could be maybe I have my student ID card from Nayarit, or maybe I have my birth certificate from Mexico. Do not show any documentation that will tie you to another country. Be mindful even while you're sharing that information. They could say, "Oh, we thought we saw a different identification card." Be mindful of not sharing any information because that could be a basis for them to ask to look at your wallet to get more information from you. So be really mindful of the information that you share, and especially be mindful not to share any documentation that will tie you to another country because that could be grounds for them to take you in for more questioning. The information you or people submit or share can be used against you. Alrighty. And then a couple reminders here too that build on what we've been sharing. Don't sign anything without first talking to a lawyer. We saw this before 5, 6, 7 years ago. We saw it previous to that, and we're seeing it now, colegas, with things called expedited removal, with things like our government moving remarkably fast, where folks are being pressured to sign documents because they're expediting their process or doing things like expedited removal. You could unknowingly sign a document that they could say, "Oh, if you sign this, you can call your attorney." Nope. Do not sign anything without first talking to a lawyer because you could be signing something that waives your rights or that puts you on a next plane out. So be very mindful to not sign anything without first talking to a lawyer. And that is exactly what you can say to them if they're pressuring you to sign something. "I will not sign something until talking to my lawyer." You have the right to speak with an attorney before signing anything. And do not worry, we're going to get into some of the details on where can you find a trusted attorney, where can you find trusted resources. We'll get into those pages coming up. And we'll also ask you also for the resources that you know in your communities in the chat. If you're having this interaction with an immigration authority, you've been very mindful, you haven't shared any details about who you are, you haven't signed anything, you've said, "I have a right to remain silent, I have a right to legal representation." After you have asserted your rights, you can, if you're outside of the home, you can always ask if you are free to leave. And if they say yes, you leave calmly. If you are not free to leave, you do not resist, you do not share information, and you exercise your rights. And we're going to talk about how you prepare for that. But remember, after you have stood your ground, you've practiced your rights, you have stayed silent, you have practiced your rights, you get to ask them, "Am I free to leave?" And if they say yes, you just calmly head on your way and we'll tell you what else to do. But if they say that you're not free to go and you're detained, then again, you do the same thing you have been doing. You do not share information and you exercise your rights. Okay. And I see some questions coming in. We'll get to those questions in just a minute. Or actually, let's pause here. Let's pause here because we're going to get into some resources. So let's pause here for any questions that are coming in.
You have quite a few, Maribel, regarding both if you don't have an ID, like what type of proper identifications can you show if you don't, in lieu of if you only have your country of origin identification, and then what also in regards to the if there is an example of a fake warrant that we can show, that way our audience here, our guests can also view. And then there was another one regarding hold on. You guys are really fast, which is great. Lots of great questions are coming in.
Yeah. We can start there. What ID and warrant examples. Okay. Great questions. What ID? You can do things like some library cards have pictures. Your Costco card also has your picture on it. Sometimes your work ID has a picture on it and your name. So any identification that has your picture and name on it, that is an ID that you can use as long as it's an ID, a picture, something that's administered here that will not connect you to another country. So I could use my Costco card. I could use my student ID card. I could use many of those some of our local library cards have pictures on there. My driver's license has my picture on there. Those are all different types of IDs that I could use that do not have any tie to my home country. And then for examples of warrants, I will also share in the chat. Let me get that link. But the National Immigration Law Center, if you Google that, you Google warrant examples, it'll share with you those warrant examples and it'll show you exactly what and where is the identifying information that you need to look for. So there's things like subpoenas and warrants, and it'll break down what does it mean and what does it give them access to do so. We can do a future training that breaks them down even deeper, but this is a great resource that you can look up and see where's the information that I can look up to make sure that it is valid.
And also we have two raised hand.
Perfect. Adelante, veo a Esme. I see Esme and Francisca.
Hola, buenos días. Sorry, good morning. I wanted to ask, I know I work for a agency and there's a lot of my clients that live like in houses by their agriculture jobs. If there's a sign or even just a regular inner city house that says do not trespass private property, can immigration or anybody still open that gate and come inside to your actual front yard, even though with signs posted that say do not trespass private property?
Okay. I'm going to write this question down to also be able to give to one of our attorneys and see their direct responses. I will say that some of this gets into, I forgot what it's called, litigation. A specific type of litigation when it comes to like private property and such. I will say that in these instances, they could use various examples as to why they trespassed, whether they had a warrant, whether they had a reason to believe someone was potentially there that they were looking for. But again, all of these components apply. The people can exert their rights to say this is private property. I refuse to open the door, to answer any questions. Do you have a warrant? All of these same things can be practiced. If we have community members that do not speak Spanish too, the other thing, some immigration authorities also speak Spanish, but the other thing you can do is just have them have the little red cards posted outside their door, and they can just leave it at that. We're going to also get into a couple examples of what can you do to protect yourself, like recording, documenting, all of those pieces. But I will still exert here in these examples the same 7 steps. You do not have the right to be here. You need to see a warrant. We're not going to comply. We're not going to give you any information. We need to see a warrant.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question. And I'll ask the attorney too. And we have a list of frequently asked questions that we're going to have an attorney join us to deepen more of the responses and give us specific examples. Okay, and I see Francisca as well. Adelante, Francisca.
Yes, I believe you had mentioned that we can show the driver's license for California, the AB 60 California driver's license that people with no status have, immigration status. That one does have the federal limits apply. And I believe that there was another Know Your Rights training where they did mention do not show the AB60 license, because where it says, federal limits apply, they can use it to say that the federal limits apply, and like look more into it and kind of make their assumption that you don't have status. So I don't know if that's something that you can clarify, but that's something that we've heard in other Know Your Rights training too.
Okay, let me get back to you all on that. The do not share the real. So we know that Real ID is taking effect. We also know that folks, regardless of their immigration status, currently also have those IDs. So let me get back to our attorneys and see what they advise on that. But for now, then that's the best practice to have, is to not show that as well until we get clarity on what that best response is. So thank you for highlighting that, Francisca. Okay. Let's see, I see Mar, adelante.
I just have a quick question. So I work for an organization where we have families that come to our market and we can close the door and stuff. But if they have a warrant with a name and it's dated and stuff, are we can we still not let them in since we don't know all the names of all of our people that come to our event? So is that are we able to say no, even if they have a warrant, like a good warrant?
That is a great question. That is something that we will have to come back to with one of our attorneys present, because that gets into public spaces, public domain, and how to best navigate that. So I will write that down, and that will potentially be our next training that we have. That brings that up, and that's actually come up before, but that's something that gets into more specifics around public spaces and how to navigate there. But if
Okay.
the warrant is effective, and they have seen the person there, or they have probable cause, likely they will just go in,
Okay.
regardless of you giving them access to it or not. But that is one of the pieces that we've been seeing with schools and more, where we need to have an attorney go into some of the specifics, because there's going to be various variables within those scenarios where it may make it accessible for them to go in, and not. So that'll be an upcoming training.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And great question, Tamara. All righty, colegas. Let's see. Any more questions, or Carmen or Norma? And I do want to share a couple great resources here that build on some of these examples.
No, I think these are around the same line as Tamar asked about, immigration allowed in the Secretary or DMV buildings. Also, if a question, if they were to come into a clinic as well. I think those are kind of around the same line of questions, which I think definitely would require, or as we are having one of our lawyer friends come to our next meeting, be able to have those. But I think all of them are spot on, concerns and valid questions that I think definitely will need our support from our legal advice.
Yes.
We also have,
Go ahead. Adelante,
we also
Betsy.
have one more question. There was a question about if we're going to be sharing these slides or if they'll have access to these slides.
Yes, they are actually already available. The ones from previous trainings are available on our website. So Betsy, if you can redrop that link in there. Those
Yes.
resources are also all linked there. The previous slide decks, previous presentations are linked to our website, including all of these great resources. And I will also highlight here, colegas, on this page that you see here, many of the components that we've already covered today are captured in these videos that are linked. And let me go ahead and put them in the chat as well. They are available in 6 different languages that go over best practices and protocols when interacting with immigration authorities. So let me also drop those into the chat. And then these questions around how to best secure, what are best practices, what are our rights in settings like schools, public spacing, storefronts. That is a big request, but lots of questions that we've gotten from there. And so that will likely be, there's 2 trainings that we're hoping to schedule. They will be set likely in February. They're going to be, we have the recurring virtual training series, but they will go into more details around public spaces and more. And then also the other key component that we want to deepen is around safety plans for our schools, safety plans for our families, just safety plans for us to better support our communities. So those are 2 of the top priorities that we'll deepen in future trainings. Okay. So with that, we're going to move on to how do we prepare and what are those resources that can get us to be prepared. Tell me in the chat, how many of you all have the phone number of someone memorized that is reliable to answer the phone, who will know the key contacts to communicate with regarding my own safety plan? How many of you all have those phone numbers memorized? The chat looks really okay. Beautiful. We have 1 of 150. Perfect. So that is all of our homework here today. To memorize the number of someone who, number 1, answers the phone, and someone who would know an attorney to contact, would know other family members of yours to contact, would know how to gain access to your home if they needed to get any documents for you, medications. So that is the homework. Number 1 is we all have the responsibility. We need to memorize the phone number of someone who is reliable to answer that phone. And number 2, that will know or have access to your security plan and key phone numbers. Number 2, the second homework we have for the day is preparing a safety plan. This includes collecting key documents and keeping them in a safe place. We have some great resources and safety plans, and I will go ahead and drop these into the chat. But all of these resources are also linked on our website, and I'll put them into the chat and we'll send them out in follow-up communications. But if you ever forget any of these links, go back to our website, our Know Your Rights page, and it has them all linked out. We have I believe on the right side of the screen is all of this information in English. The left side of the screen is all this information in Spanish. These are some really great resources. So these top 2 links where it says confirm local resources, you go onto these links, you can type in your zip code by state. You will be able to find local resources, local attorneys, community-based organizations that are low bono or that are free or that are pro bono. You also find access to various local organizations that are gathering resources for our community, that are doing citizenship clinics and more. These are great resources for you to find out who are the local trusted vetted attorneys, community-based organizations, and more, and you can search by zip code and state. Then, preparing tools and safety plans. These 3 are great resources that outline what do you need to do to prepare. It includes what are the key components that you need to remember. They include lists of whose phone number do I need to write down? Who are the key contacts? What medications do I take? Where do my children go to school? Where are the folks that will be picking them up? All of that, those key details is outlined in these documents so that you can sit down with your loved ones. These are great safety plans that we should have regardless of our immigration status. To be able to have those packets, it includes things like where do we bank so that in case we need to go adjust things at our bank. And there's also a caregiver's affidavit, where in case you are not able to do so, you are detained, or you simply are not able to do so for various reasons, you can have a loved one go and take your child to an appointment, adjust things at their school if needed. These are all great resources. They each have a couple different components that are unique. that are great for you to look through and start to fill out with your families. And then for our community members, our promotoras in the space, folks that work with other community folks, these videos go through in about 3 to 4 minute chunks. They go through those interactions with immigration authorities and break down what could happen and how to best respond. So it's a much more soothing voice than mine today, but it goes over some of that same information where you can easily share that and break it down with your loved ones. And then, of course, you can also scan these QR codes here on the left. So these colegas are great resources. You can already start to fill them out. This is part of your homework. Number 1, memorize that phone number of my sister, who I'm going to have her phone number written on until I memorize it. And she'll know exactly where she can find my safety plan and my documents that I've stored away in case of an emergency, in case I'm detained, in case I'm unable to get to my family. And if you know of any other great resources too, or safety plan outlines, please feel free to put them in the chat. These are some of the favorite ones that we've found so far. And again, these highlight here those videos available in 6 languages. It's a great way for you to not have to memorize this information in front of a group, but it's something you can put on for the group and you all can look at them together and debrief as each one of those little videos highlights those best practices, highlights potential interactions. We still have a couple more steps, colegas. So let's say we've gotten to the point where we've navigated, we've asked if we're free to go. This is something that all of us can do, documenting. Save any information you can gather from this interaction. So if I was able to take a picture of that warrant, I'm going to take a picture of that, I'm going to save it. Save a photocopy if they leave you a copy of the order. But then what you're also going to do is write down things like the date, the place, the time. If you feel comfortable, you can take a photo of the agent's name or badge. If you feel safe to do so, you can record the whole interaction. As long as it doesn't interact with any processes that are taking place, if I see someone's being detained across the street, I can be recording. As long as I feel safe to do so and I'm not directly interacting or impeding the detention. So those are all things, colegas, that we are all able to do. We can gauge it on how best we feel safe to do so. But those are some of the key things that we can also do that can document, like our colega Tamar said. What if they're not listening, or what if they're still exerting their power? We can document those things and have people document that so that we can also have the folks that are handling the interaction do what they have to do to protect themselves, and the community around can try to do what they can to also support protection of that person by recording, by documenting, as long as they feel safe to do so. And then another big piece, colegas, and this, I think we can all attest, we've seen the power of communication. Communicate with your lawyer. If you're arrested, ask to contact a lawyer. Again, there's those great resources that we linked onto our website. Also in the chat, if you have great local response networks, rapid response networks, please put those into the chat. Here in Washington State, we have a state-based rapid response network that is being established. Those are in the process of being strengthened. So please share those if they are already existing in your communities, in your neighborhoods. Then communicating with trusted local community agencies. There are many community agencies that are highlighting if there's local immigration raids taking place, communicating through WhatsApp and text messages, sharing there's been a sighting near the school. That is extremely important for us to do to keep safe, of spreading verified information with trusted entities so that we can communicate to our families. Look, we've seen this activity taking place near our favorite panaderia. And then you can also later say, as of 3 o'clock this afternoon, there is no more immigration presence near the panaderia. That is key information so we can support our communities in knowing what's happening outside of their surroundings. And then also, if someone knows you're detained, they can also locate you in this locator tool. We can also put that into the chat. This does sometimes take time to populate, but that is also another resource or tool that you can use to look up someone to see if they have been detained. But a lawyer will always be able to help in getting the most updated information. Okay, let me see if we have any questions so far, because we've gotten to that point where we have the quiz. Norma, Carmen, Betsy, any questions?
You're okay right now, Maribel.
Great. Oh, and I see my compañera Ana Flores posted the great resource at the Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network here from Washington State. Great resources. Many rapid response networks are forming around. Adelante, Lucy.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I just want to say how grateful I am for all of you and sharing information. Just hearing someone speak on the topic, being so knowledgeable, it really strengthens us. Even hearing professional Spanish, I'm just moved. I live in a town where Spanish isn't the primary language, so it's beautiful to hear. I'm running into a lot of people who are really distressed. I have a long history in mental health, over 30 years. I'm at a loss as to how to help them. I've never felt so just I'm lost. I don't know how to reassure them or what to tell them. Will there be an upcoming meeting that covers how to best support people who are facing very real dangers? Or the thing that breaks my heart the most is kids being really scared for their parents. Yeah, so thank you for allowing me to be a part of this and for taking my question.
Gracias, Lucy. Great question, and also gracias for your very kind words. So as you know, promotoras, we don't do anything half-hearted. So we listened to our promotoras, to our community, and we heard two top concerns that came from our communities since the November results. And so with that, the two things we heard from our community loud and clear is mental health and emotional well-being is our top concern, and know your rights is our top concern. And so with that, our team here at Visión y Compromiso, with great partners, we put together a plan, and Betsy is putting it into the chat. But Carmen, would you like to share a little bit about our plan and what has been put forth? This is my other half in the education team, Carmen here. Adelante,
Yeah.
Carmen.
Thank you, Maribel. Yeah, we have a plan to facilitate workshops, the mental health and well-being as well. It's gonna be in Spanish and English. Is the third Wednesday of every month. Every third Wednesday it's gonna be in Spanish, and every third Tuesday is gonna be in English. So we are collaborate with Maribel. It's a great team. So just join with us. Thank you.
Gracias, Carmen. Yes, so we have that virtual monthly training series. So right now, this is the last Tuesday of the month, but the second to last Tuesday of the month will be focused on mental health and well-being. So Carmen actually led a training last week on Wednesday in Spanish, where it was right after the executive orders, and folks came on, and I see some of you all here came on, and we talked about, Godman led a beautiful training on how to navigate and express our emotions, but how to also kind of navigate that secondary trauma and emotion that comes up for us. And so every month, Godman will be leading the Spanish mental health and emotional well-being trainings. And we have another colleague that will be leading those mental health and well-being trainings in English. And each month we'll focus on a different topic. So we'll focus on like the increased violence in our communities. We will focus on navigating things like hate speech. We will focus on the increased anxiety, depression, and in some communities, suicidal ideations of our youth. So every month we'll be focusing on a different topic regarding mental health and well-being. And then the last week of the month, we'll focus on Know Your Rights training. Unfortunately, this is what our community is going to be navigating. So we're going to handle both. We're going to handle navigating the mental emotional components. And then we're also going to handle the advocacy, the fight, the lucha components, because both of those go hand in hand. I will also share in those mental health and well-being trainings, we will be posting them online, only the first hour. The first hour will be focused on those practices, those strategies. The second hour, we're closing it so we can do that desahogo, that community, the community undrowning of what we're feeling and navigating. So join us there too. En adelante, Angelica.
Yeah, so do we need to register again for the next series that you have for this, and the same if we register for the health series? Do we need to register every time, or do we just use the link that we got the first time?
As long as you register one time, since these were our first trainings, what we're going to do is then we'll pull that information and we'll pull it onto a calendar so you have that reoccurring. Since these series just got set up, we wanted to set it up first, and then we'll pull your information from there. So if you have new colleagues that want to join, and they have, let's say in March, have them register for the first time, but from there, we'll include them in on the list. Does that sound good to folks? So that way you don't have to register every time, and it'll be the same Zoom link.
Thank you.
Perfect. Oh, perfect. And I got some questions. Okay, if you'd like to take these in Spanish, beautiful. We're offering these trainings in Spanish on Wednesdays. So the second to last Wednesday of the month, or sorry, the third to last Wednesday of the month, that's the mental health and well-being and Spanish with Carmen. And then the last Wednesday of the month, that is the Spanish training on Know Your Rights. So I'll just say it in Spanish ahorita, rapidito. Los miércoles, el penúltimo miércoles y el último miércoles de cada mes tenemos esas capacitaciones completamente en español. Así es que el penúltimo miércoles nos enfocamos en la salud mental y el bienestar emocional. Y el último miércoles nos enfocamos en conocer sus derechos, y cada mes profundizamos un tema en esas áreas. Así es que nos pueden acompañar el día de mañana, miércoles, para esta capacitación de conocer sus derechos en español. Va a ser de las 9 a las 11 y va a ser aquí en este mismo enlace. Okay. Alrighty. Any more questions that are coming up? And if not, we have a pop quiz to go to. Carmen, Norma, Betsy, anything that we missed, colegas?
You do have a question regarding DACA, Maribel. How does ICE affect DACA individuals if stopped, if we know if I does not follow procedures?
Okay. So how does ICE affect DACA recipients if they don't follow procedures?
Yeah, if ICE does not always follow procedure.
That's a great question. So we saw this in the previous administration too. The number one thing, colegas, here is, again, you have to practice these 7 steps of not to share more information. Whether you're a DACA recipient and you have any type of protected status, do not try to negotiate. Do not say, I'm going to try to get myself out of this. The least amount of information you can share will help you regardless whether they're following procedures or not. And then those key components of the communication and the documentation. Those will be the key components to follow, whether an immigration authority is following protocol or not. And then, of course, that key component of getting in contact with your attorney. And so that are the number one pieces for DACA recipients, for anyone that has a protected or non-protected immigration status. You cannot negotiate your way out of these things. You cannot share information for them to see you heart to heart. Don't share information. Don't sign anything. And get in contact with your attorney. And folks that are experiencing this, that are witnessing this, that feel safe to do so, you have to document that for that person. So I know sometimes it can feel like, oh, we have these seven steps, Maribel. These 7 steps can't save us. Colegas, these 7 steps are what we have that we can control and use ahorita, and we can adapt them. We can adapt them in these spaces. And what's more powerful is if there's 3 people in that space that know these 7 steps, because then they are also gonna, whatever I miss, they've got my back. Okay, adelante, Esme.
Sorry, quick question. I know we're at the end. When they have a warrant, do they come with the picture of the individual they're looking for, or is it just a paper?
It's just a paper. In all of the examples that I have seen, it's just a paper. There may be some cases where they may have a warrant. That might be more my SPD files that I've seen on televisión, but in most cases, it's the papers that I have seen. And colegas too, we're in this together. We're in this for the long haul, together as community. That's what I mean. So if you all also have, just like our colegas modeled, hey, they've told us not to show this, or hey, what about this? Please feel free to put it into the chat or come off mute, because we're all going to become experts in this, in protecting our communities. So if you have any other resource or information, please come off mute or please put it in the chat. Adelante, Angelica.
So I have a question about the situation that we know it's happening, that immigration ICE is not following procedure. And we are going to be instructing our fellow compatriots to follow this protocol that could help them stay away or be able to just leave. But what happens to the ones that are arrested? What happens to the ones? Do you guys have information about what, how, following all of these procedures, documenting, calling a lawyer, not saying anything, how does that help them once they are arrested? Because hopefully they will be able to go home after they follow all of this. But what if they are arrested? What happens to them? Because a lot of the people that we are trying to assist, they are still afraid because they know that a lot of the times ICE doesn't follow procedure.
That's a great question. So in the event that they are detained and are not able to go home, what we have heard from attorneys, what we have seen is the most effective way for now to try to navigate these situations is, and let me see, I'm putting it back, I'm adjusting my screens here, is to not sign anything. Many times once detained, they will say, hey, if you sign this document for intake or processing or any of those things, they try to coerce our communities to sign a document once they're detained. Again, step number 4, do not sign anything without an attorney present. That is the number 1 piece. Do not sign anything, and then contact your lawyer. And it's a lot easier if you already have either a lawyer or an organization that has lawyers that you can contact with and say, look, I've been detained, and they can make that a priority to see, where have you been detained? What do they have you on holding? Because then that lawyer can also see, hey, if this person didn't give them any information, I don't see any reason why they haven't detained. That lawyer could potentially advocate to get you or could potentially support you in getting out of detention. So those two top things are do not sign anything and get in communication with your lawyer. Those are the two things that we would advocate for someone that does get detained. Those are the two priorities. Do not sign anything. Don't tell them any extra information. And contact your lawyer or contact your person. Maybe you have Maribel's phone number. Maribel knows where your safety plan is. Then I'm going to call our resources here. I'm going to call the attorney to say, hey, my mama was detained. This is her information. And then that lawyer can go in and see on what accounts do they have you held. And if my mama didn't tell them anything, she didn't show them any additional ID, then we might be able to get her out sooner. And I know doesn't feel good to hear. I know we want to do more for our communities. But ahorita, what we can do if our communities are detained is giving them the tools so that their attorneys can then take on the fight from there. That's where we're at right now. And there's other grassroots efforts we can do, pero por ahorita, those are the best practices we have right now that we're getting from attorneys. Is do everything we can so that when the attorneys see ese caso, they're going to say, well, Maribel has nothing in her file here. Why are you holding her? That's the biggest regalo I can give to myself. Nada. Okay, and I see Lexi has their hand up or her hand up.
Hi, yes, I just wanted to share a resource in this community as well. Just because, as we know, like there's just so many things that are just changing that it feels almost like every week. And so I've been trying to be as involved in just sitting in all the different types of Know Your Rights trainings or just immigration-based trainings as things just continue to change. And I wanted to just share with you all here, like from the Immigrant Legal Resource Center, they're providing some bi-weekly briefings. So they're like 1 hour briefings that are hosted every other week during the first 6 months of this year. And so I just wanted to uplift that here too. And they're intended for advocates, and I think of like community, like, because I'm a community health worker here in San Francisco. And so these are also like intended for advocates and practitioners. And this space specifically is meant for people, within the community, and also any sort of federal government employees are unfortunately not eligible to register. And so I just wanted to share that with you all. And let me just post the link here. Maybe it's already in the resources that this lovely organization has already provided, but I just wanted to uplift it here. So I just put it in the chat too, the link. So if you all are interested and have time to sign up, I think they start not this week, but next week. And then from then on, every other week. So, because it's, a lot of the questions that were shared here, I was like, oh yeah, I want to know that too, like the federal limits, on the driver's license, for example, because that came up in our community out here too. And so, I think as long as we keep being informed as much as possible, it is going to get around and how we can support each other. So, but yeah, I just wanted to uplift that too, for other people in this space. Thank you.
Thank you, Lexi. Thank you for sharing. The ILRC Colegas, the Immigration Legal Resource Center, a lot of the safety tools that I shared with you all, the preparation toolkit, that is from the Immigration Legal Resource Center. So great resources already. Gracias, Lexi, for sharing this resource. I will share that, a lot of us here, while we're also navigating this heaviness with our communities and maybe as individuals, we also have the privilegio of being able to communicate in English. And so that also gives us the privilege to be able to access different types of information. So I do hope to see you all, not just in future trainings here, but also in some of these spaces like the advocate briefings, because a lot of this information may not change completely, It may change in some ways, but it certainly will be updated. So things like, what does this new executive order mean for our communities? Does that mean we have to adjust this component in this way or adjust this in this other way? So I do hope to see you all, not just in these trainings in English, but other spaces that offer complex information like advocate briefings. That's a great space for us to also get those refreshers with other colegas, colleagues that are also trying to navigate and advocate alongside each other. And then in our mental health briefings too with our team, that is going to be important for us to be able to take care of our own mental health and well-being as we continue La Lucha. Okay, team, let's see. Any other questions or resources? Don't forget, we have a poll.
You do have one question. It's around the Lake and Riley Act and how it'll affect DACA recipients.
Great question. Come back to us on that. We're still doing the assessment of those components. That is going to be a lot of these components too with the executive order. As you all will see too, there will be different lawsuits that come up. That will also affect how these things get enacted. And so instead of speaking as to speculating what that might look like, we're going to hold on responding to those components. But there'll be a lot of that coming up. Again, the 7 principles we're sharing for now, stick to that. But we'll let you know how some of these things, whether it's the Lake and Riley Act or DACA recipients, how those things continue to be affected as we see some of these executive orders and other acts take place. So more to come there. And we will also share more ways to advocate, colegas, too. As we see opportunities, we'll share opportunities to advocate. I think right now what we've seen in this month is that things are moving quickly, but also we're starting to see our states, our schools, our teachers, our community to also start to move quickly. So ahí vamos, it'll be that balance. I know folks are starting to disconnect. This will be recorded and also available online. We do already have a version in Spanish, and we have a training tomorrow in Spanish. The mental health training is not yet on our website, but it will be. We'll be uploading it there, so visit us there. For the 106 people that join us, we have a pop quiz to take really quick, just to make sure we all leave here with these 7 key points. You can come off mute, or you can also share the answer in the chat. But I want to start with number 1, colegas. Blink, open the door. I see Graviela shaking her head. Do not. Do we agree? Is Gabriela correct? Do not open the door. Beautiful. Okay. Number 2, verify, blink.
Warrant.
Beautiful.
Warrant.
Beautiful. Eso mero. Gracias, Jaira. Gracias, Lisbeth. Okay, number 3, blank questions.
Do not ask
Don't
questions.
answer.
Don't answer questions.
Do not answer the questions. Tell your little ones too that like to talk to strangers. Do not answer their questions. Do not chat with them. They don't need to know where your papas are from. That's something too to also teach our little ones. Los que les gusta platicar, those that like to chat, be mindful of what we share. Now, number 4, colegas, what should I sign?
Nothing. Nothing.
Beautiful. Okay, and number 5, what question do I ask? Am I free to?
Go.
Leave. Leave.
Beautiful. And am I free to leave or go? And if they say yes, tranquila, with calma, I just take on my way, and I know the next 2 things I have to do. What do I need to do next?
Document.
Eso mero, document. And then what else do I do?
Communicate.
Eso mero, Naimid. Communicate. I document and communicate. And if I see this happening somewhere, I also document and communicate. Or I record if I feel safe. I'm going to record it. And then, colegas, what's your homework? How are you going to prepare?
To memorize a phone number of the most close person that we know and they know each other.
Beautiful. Yes. Memorize ese número de teléfono, that phone number of someone that we know and that will be answering that phone. That isn't going to wait 2 days to answer my phone. And then what else are you going to do? You got some
Can I
information.
suggest something?
Sí, adelante, Lucy.
Um, it's important that people have you, if they can, on emergency bypass on your phone. So those calls do come through and they know that it's important. Continue to remind people you're my emergency contact with things the way that they are. It's important that they are able to reach you and that they do have up-to-date information on how they could best support you.
Beautiful. That's a great tip. Make sure you add them to the emergency bypass. And that's it.
Maribel. Maribel.
Sí, adelante.
Okay, I would like to add a little bit. I think so it's important, just in case, always to have a plan B. Now we are working on this, advocating, educating, communicating, many ways, but always to have a plan B will be important as well. And maybe we can organize and find ways how to have a plan B and be more supportive from that way.
Beautiful. I love that, Lisbeth.
Ma-
Okay, colegas, Lisbeth said we have to memorize 2 phone numbers, and we have one more thing we have to do. Pero adelante, Jaira.
Maribel, I'm so sorry, and thank you for all the information. This is wonderful. Unfortunately, I have to leave. I have a meeting to attend. Do you have a phone number where I can contact you? I need to send you an invitation or your email or your personal email address. Is that possible?
See, of course. Let me put my email address into the chat and phone number. But it is all of our contacts here. Carmen, Norma, Betsy. It's our names at Visión y Compromiso. And I will put it into the chat. Compromiso.org. And then I'll also put my phone number in there. And okay, just double checking my phone number. That is into the chat, colegas. The other thing I want to make sure to highlight, and this goes to the example that our colleague just gave us of having a backup plan. The other thing we need to do is fill out those safety plans, because that then gives us access to anyone that we trust that can get to that safety plan. Will know exactly what our safety plan is, because they'll know the phone numbers, they'll know our information. So that, colegas, is the other homework that you all have. That is key, regardless of your immigration status. Unfortunately, with the wildfires we have seen in parts of our state of California, those safety plans can come in very handy for all of our homes. So these safety plans are something that we should all be filling out. We have 3 beautiful templates that you can go ahead and access and do it over dinner with your family. And I see we have another question from our colega Angelica. Adelante, Angelica.
Yeah, I was noticing in the links that you shared, one of them was filling out paperwork to assign a guardian for your children. So I think that is one of the very important things to do, because otherwise, if the children are left alone, I am assuming that the county has to take care of them because there's nobody in charge of these children that are that might be left behind. Remember that the children are going to be in school, they're going to be and in different places. They're not going to be right there with you so that the parents can take their children with them. So if you have a plan or a paper saying or specifying who has rights to take to make decisions on for your children, that also protects them. It's a sad situation, but it's better than just leaving them for the county to take care of.
That's a great example, Angelica, and I've put that information again in the chat So this is, for example, a caregiver's affidavit. So it doesn't take away the guardianship rights. So if I am detained or I'm unable to, as soon as I'm able and ready to go get my kids, to enroll them back and to change any of that, it doesn't take away my rights. So all of those documents, colegas, are in the chat. They're linked on our website. They're all available at least in English and Spanish. And so take a look at some of those links. But yeah, these, unfortunately, our communities have been navigating this for many, many years. And so a lot of these resources have been created by trusted organizations. And so they've done a really good job of including the language of, does this take away my babies, or does it just make it so that someone else can take care of my babies until I'm able to do so? So look at these con tranquilidad, get your little tea, and talk to our young people about this. Talk to your family about this too, because they're already thinking about these things because they see it on social media, they hear it on the radio. So you can say, you know what? Well, let's talk about it as us as a family. Let's go through these documents. Let's fill that out because maybe I'm not detained, but maybe I go to the hospital or maybe I have to leave on an emergency trip. All of those things are reasons why we could have these phone numbers written down. We could have this information that can get our family to keep going on until I'm ready and able to get back to head of household. Okay. Alrighty, colegas. I am going to stop recording.